I spent 5 years building a fortress of lies to protect the only thing that mattered. But one wrong turn in a crowded hotel lobby was about to shatter my carefully constructed world into a million pieces. Before we dive into this scandalous reunion that will have you screaming at your screen, make sure to hit that subscribe button, like this video, and comment secret down below if you love a good second chance romance. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. The air in the Grand Metropolitan Hotel smelled like money, crisp, cold, and intimidating. It was a scent I had grown to despise, mostly because it reminded me of him. My hands were shaking as I adjusted the collar of my suit, checking my reflection in the polished brass of the elevator doors. I looked calm. I looked professional. I looked like Julian Vance, the CEO of Vance Architecture, a man who had clawed his way up from nothing to stand amongst the city's elite. But inside, I was a terrified 22-year-old Omega again, running away in the middle of the night with nothing but a broken heart and a positive pregnancy test. "Papa, are we going to see the Knights?" A small tug on my pant leg pulled me from my spiraling thoughts. I looked down into a pair of wide, mismatched eyes, one blue, one hazel. The exact same eyes that haunted my dreams every night. "No Knights tonight, Leo," I whispered, kneeling to fix his tiny bow tie. It was crooked. It was always crooked. Remember the rules? You stay with Auntie Sarah in the lounge while Papa talks to the boring investors. You eat your coloring books. You use your coloring books, don't eat them, and you do not, under any circumstances, talk to strangers. Leo pouted, his lower lip jutting out in a way that was so painfully familiar it made my chest ache. "But you said there's a king here." "I said there are titans of industry, Leo. That's different. Titans are grumpy, and they don't like sticky fingers." I kissed his forehead, inhaling the scent of baby shampoo and innocence. He was my world. He was the reason I worked 80-hour weeks. He was the reason I hadn't dated an alpha in half a decade. And he was the reason I was terrified of walking into that ballroom. Because the king Leo was talking about? That was Dante Kincaid, the billionaire owner of Kincaid Global, my business rival, and Leo's father. "Go with Sarah, baby. I'll be back in 1 hour." I watched my assistant, Sarah, lead him away toward the VIP childcare suite the event organizers had set up. I waited until his messy mop of dark curls disappeared around the corner before I allowed myself to breathe. "You can do this, Julian," I told myself. "You just need to secure the contract for the Riverside project. Dante won't even notice you. To him, you're just a nuisance competitor. A gnat. He probably doesn't even remember your face." That was the lie I told myself every day. It was easier than accepting the truth. That Dante Kincaid didn't forget anything. I pushed open the double doors and stepped into the gala. The noise hit me first, a low roar of polite conversation, clinking crystal, and the subtle, underlying hum of alpha pheromones posturing for dominance. It was thick enough to taste. I kept my scent blockers strong, practically bathing in neutralizers this morning. Here, I wasn't an Omega. I was a CEO. I grabbed a glass of champagne from a passing tray, not to drink, but to have something to hold. My eyes scanned the room, instinctively looking for the exits first, and then him. It didn't take long. Dante Kincaid didn't just enter a room, he consumed it. He was standing near the center of the ballroom, surrounded by a circle of sycophants laughing too hard at his jokes. He was taller than everyone else, his shoulders broad enough to carry the weight of the skyline visible through the windows. He wore a tuxedo that probably cost more than my first car, black on black, severe and elegant. But it was his face that froze the blood in my veins. Sharp jawline, dark stubble that looked rough against his pale skin, and those eyes. Predatory. Calculating. Cold. He looked bored. I quickly turned my back, staring intently at a generic abstract painting on the wall. Don't look at him. If you look at him, he'll sense it. He's an apex alpha. They have a sixth sense for fear. "Mr. Vance." I jumped, nearly spilling my drink. A short, balding man was smiling at me. It was Mr. Henderson, the head of the zoning committee for the Riverside project. The man I needed to impress. "Mr. Henderson." I forced a smile, turning on the charm. I was just admiring the bold strokes in this piece. "Indeed," Henderson chuckled. "Listen, Julian, I've been looking over your proposal. It's ambitious. But Kincaid Global has made a counter-offer this morning. A very aggressive one." My stomach dropped. Kincaid Global doesn't care about the community center aspect. They'll turn the whole waterfront into luxury condos. "They're offering double the revenue share for the city," Henderson said, his eyes darting over my shoulder. I didn't need to turn around to know who had walked up behind me. The air temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. The scent of rain and spiced sandalwood sharp, masculine, and terrifyingly addictive, wrapped around me. Revenue is important. A deep, baritone voice rumbled, vibrating through the floorboards and straight into my spine. But Mr. Vance is right. Community is vital. I froze. I stopped breathing. I slowly turned around. Dante Kincaid was towering over me. Up close, he was devastating. The years hadn't softened him. They had chiseled him into something harder, more lethal. He wasn't looking at Henderson. He was looking directly at me. His eyes narrowed slightly, a flicker of something unreadable passing through them. Vance. Kincaid. I managed to say, my voice steady despite the hurricane in my chest. I didn't think you handled city zoning disputes personally. Don't you have minions for this? The corner of his mouth quirked up. A almost smile. I like to keep an eye on my competition, especially the ones who are surprisingly resilient. He took a step closer. Just one step, but it felt like he had invaded my personal territory. My Omega instincts were screaming at me to either bare my neck or run for the hills. I dug my fingernails into my palm to ground myself. We're not giving up the Riverside bid, Dante, I said, dropping the formalities. I know, he said softly, his voice dropping an octave so only I could hear. You never did know when to quit, did you, Julian? My heart hammered against my ribs. Was that a double meaning? Was he talking about the business, or was he talking about us? About the night 5 years ago when I had argued with him until dawn, challenged him, amused him, and then slept with him? I have to go, I blurted out. Excuse me. I didn't wait for a response. I turned and walked away, walking as fast as I could without running. I needed air. I needed to get out of his orbit before I did something stupid, like confess or collapse. I made it to the heavy velvet curtains of the balcony and slipped outside. The cool night air hit my flushed face. I leaned against the stone railing, gasping for breath. He doesn't know, I reassured myself. He doesn't know about Leo. He doesn't know I left because I was pregnant. He thinks I was just another conquest who got cold feet. I checked my watch. 20 minutes. I just had to survive 20 more minutes, shake Henderson's hand again, and then I could grab Leo and disappear. Leo. A sudden jolt of anxiety spiked in my gut. I hadn't checked my phone. I pulled it out and saw 3 missed messages from Sarah. 19:05, he's asking for juice. 19:10, Julian, the childcare staff is doing a magic show, but he's not interested. 19:15, he ran off. My blood ran cold. The last message was from 2 minutes ago. 19:17, I turned around to grab his bag, and he ducked under the table and bolted. I think he headed for the ballroom. I'm coming to find you. No, 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 I whispered, panic rising in my throat like bile. The ballroom was packed with hundreds of people. Waiters carrying trays of hot food, heavy equipment, and Dante. I pushed back through the curtains, my eyes frantically scanning the crowd. The sea of black tuxedos and evening gowns made it impossible to see anything at 3 feet tall. Excuse me, pardon me, I muttered, pushing past a group of socialites who glared at me. I checked the buffet table. Leo loved cheese. Nothing. I checked the bandstand. Leo loved drums. Nothing. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. If Dante saw him, if anyone saw him, the resemblance wasn't just a coincidence. It was a photocopy. Leo had Dante's hair, Dante's nose, and that specific, intense stare that could wither a houseplant. The only thing he had of mine was his height and his stubbornness. I reached the center of the room, spinning in a circle. Then the crowd parted. It was like the universe decided to shine a spotlight on my worst nightmare. Near the champagne fountain, a group of high-profile investors had formed a semicircle. In the center of that circle stood Dante Kincaid. He looked bored again, swirling his drink, listening to a man drone on about stock options. And tugging on the hem of Dante's pristine, Italian silk tuxedo jacket was a small boy in a crooked bow tie. Time stopped. Literally stopped. The music faded. The chatter turned to white noise. I tried to move, to shout, but my voice was trapped in my throat. Dante frowned, looking down. He seemed confused, annoyed that someone dared to touch him. He brushed his sleeve, looking for the source of the disturbance. His gaze landed on Leo. Leo wasn't scared. He never was. He was tilting his head back, staring up at the giant of a man with critical, squinted eyes. Dante froze. The annoyance vanished, replaced by genuine shock. He blinked once, twice. He slowly crouched down, ignoring the gasps of the people around him. He went down on one knee, bringing himself to eye level with my son. I was 10 feet away, paralyzed. I could hear them. The acoustics of the room carried their voices perfectly to me. "Hello," Dante said, his voice unusually gentle. "Are you lost, little one?" Leo didn't answer the question. He reached out a small, chubby hand and pointed a finger right at Dante's face, tracing the air in front of his nose. "You look like me," Leo announced, his voice clear and ringing with childish wonder. The investors chuckled nervously. "Kids say the darndest things," one of them muttered. But Dante didn't laugh. He stared at Leo. He looked at the boy's dark curls. He looked at the mismatched eyes, a trait that was rare. A trait that ran in the Kincaid family. I knew that because Dante had told me once, tracing his own eyes in the mirror. "You look like me," Leo repeated more insistently. "But older. And you look grumpy." Dante's breath hitched. I saw his hand tremble slightly as he reached out, hovering near Leo's shoulder, but not touching him. "What is your name?" "Leo," my son chirped. "Leo," Dante repeated. The name sounded like a prayer on his lips. "And where are your parents, Leo?" "My papa is here. He's working. He designs big houses." Dante's head snapped up. He didn't scan the crowd. He didn't look around aimlessly. His eyes locked onto mine like a heat-seeking missile. I was standing frozen near a pillar, looking like a deer caught in the headlights of a semi-truck. The recognition was instant. I saw the moment the pieces clicked together in his genius-level brain. Julian Vance. 5 years ago. A boy who is exactly 5 years old. A boy who looks like a miniature clone of Dante. The air between us crackled with electricity. It was suffocating. The fury, the confusion, the realization. It all flashed across Dante's face in a microsecond before settling into something terrifyingly possessive. He stood up slowly, never breaking eye contact with me. He looked like a wolf who had just found its mate, and its cub. "Julian," he said. He didn't shout, but his voice cut through the noise of the party like a blade. I took a step back. "Leo, come here." I called out, my voice cracking. Leo looked at me, beaming. "Papa, look. I found the king. He looks like me." "Leo, come here now," I ordered, using my serious voice. Leo sensed the danger. He scampered away from Dante and ran to my side, wrapping his arms around my leg. I instinctively put a hand on his head, pulling him behind me, shielding him with my body. I looked up at Dante. "Stay away from us." Dante crossed the distance between us in 3 long strides. The crowd parted for him like the Red Sea. He stopped inches from me, his towering frame casting a shadow over us both. The scent of distressed alpha, smoke and ozone, flooded my senses, making my knees weak. He looked down at Leo, hiding behind my leg, and then back up at me. His eyes were burning with a fire that could burn the whole city down. "He didn't know," Dante whispered, his voice rough, sounding like gravel grinding together. "He didn't know I was his dad." I swallowed hard. "Dante, did you think you could hide him?" Dante hissed, stepping closer, boxing me in against the pillar. "Did you think I wouldn't know my own blood?" "It's not what you think," I lied, desperate. "He's not." Dante slammed his hand against the pillar next to my head. The sound echoed through the silent ballroom. Everyone was watching. The music had stopped. "Don't lie to me, Julian," he growled, leaning in until his lips brushed my ear. "Not about this. Never about this." He pulled back, his silver eyes flashing. He reached out and grabbed my wrist, not painful but firm. An iron grip that said you are not running away this time. "We are leaving," Dante announced to the room, his voice commanding absolute obedience. "Now." "I can't just leave," I protested, though my resolve was crumbling under the weight of his presence. "My investors. I'll buy the damn company." Dante roared, losing his composure for the first time in his career. "I don't care. We need to talk. Now." He looked down at Leo, who was watching with wide, fascinated eyes. Dante's expression softened instantly, a heartbreaking vulnerability cracking his armor. "And you," Dante said softly to the boy. "You're coming with us." "Leo." I looked at the exit. I looked at the crowd. I looked at the alpha who had haunted my memories for 5 years, holding my wrist like it was a lifeline. There was no running. Not this time. End of Chapter 1. Part 2: Stolen Years. The walk from the ballroom to the valet stand felt less like an exit and more like a procession to the gallows. Dante Kincaid didn't drag me. He was too refined for that, but the hand he kept on the small of my back was heavy, a heated brand of possession that steered me with undeniable force. It was a touch that said to anyone watching, mine. Camera flashes erupted the moment the glass doors slid open, blinding white bursts in the night air. The paparazzi, sensing blood in the water, surged forward. "Mr. Kincaid, is it true the merger is falling through?" "Mr. Vance, who is the child? Are Vance Architecture and Kincaid Global joining forces?" I instinctively curled inward, shielding Leo's face with my jacket. I felt a surge of protective terror. I had kept Leo out of the press for 5 years. I had kept him a secret to give him a normal life, away from the sharks that circled the Kincaid empire. Back, Dante snarled. It wasn't a shout. It was a command laced with alpha authority that dropped the temperature on the sidewalk. The reporters stumbled back, their cameras lowering instinctively. Dante moved us toward a sleek, black Maybach that was already idling at the curb. The back door held open by a stoic driver who didn't even blink at the sight of his boss storming out with a rival CEO and a toddler. "Get in," Dante murmured, his voice tight. I slid into the back seat, pulling Leo onto my lap. The interior smelled of expensive leather and Dante, spiced sandalwood and rain, but now laced with the acrid scent of burnt sugar. Anger. Pure, unadulterated alpha rage. Dante slid in beside us. The door thudded shut, sealing us in a vacuum of silence. "Drive," Dante ordered. "Home." "The penthouse, sir?" the driver asked. "Yes." My heart hammered against my ribs. "Dante, no. My car is here. My apartment is." "Your apartment is insecure." Dante cut me off, not even looking at me. He was staring straight ahead, his jaw clenched so tight a muscle feathered beneath his ear. The press saw the boy. By tomorrow morning, every tabloid in the city will be dissecting his face, comparing his features to mine. They will find where you live. They will camp on your doorstep. He turned his head slowly, pinning me with those icy, furious eyes. "You are not taking my son to a place where he can be hunted." My son. The words hung in the air, heavy and absolute. He hadn't asked for a paternity test. He hadn't asked for a timeline. He just knew. "He has my eyes," Dante said quietly, answering the question I hadn't asked. He looked down at Leo, who was currently chewing on the seatbelt strap, blissfully unaware of the tension strangling his parents. "And he has your nose. The way it crinkles." Leo stopped chewing and looked up at Dante. "Your car is very big," he observed. "Do you have a spaceship too?" For a second, the mask cracked. Dante's lips twitched. "No spaceship, but I have a helicopter." Leo's eyes went wide. "Whoa, Papa, did you hear? He has a helicopter." "I heard, baby," I whispered, smoothing his curls. I glared at Dante. "Don't dazzle him with toys, Kincaid. You can't buy him." "I don't need to buy what is already mine," Dante shot back, his voice dropping to a dangerous growl. "And I don't need to buy you either. Though, considering the state of your company's financials compared to mine, I probably could." "My financials are fine," I snapped, the old rivalry flaring up to cover my fear. "And Vance Architecture is not for sale." "Everything is for sale, Julian," Dante said, leaning closer. The space between us evaporated. His knee brushed mine, sending a jolt of electricity straight up my thigh. "It just depends on the currency. Some people want money. Some want power." He reached out, his large hand hovering over Leo's head before gently, hesitantly, brushing a curl away from the boy's forehead. His fingers were trembling. "And some people," Dante whispered, his voice cracking, "just want the time they were stolen." I looked away, staring out the tinted window as the city lights blurred by. Guilt, sharp and cold, pierced my chest. I hadn't stolen the time out of malice. I had done it out of survival. 5 years ago. I closed my eyes and I was back there. The morning after the merger party. I had woken up in Dante's bed, tangled in his sheets, smelling like him, feeling more safe and content than I ever had in my life. I had foolishly thought it meant something. But then I had heard him on the phone in the balcony. "It's handled. Vance is pliable. I'll have the acquisition signed by noon. He's enthusiastic." I had felt like a pawn. A cheap conquest used to secure a business deal. I had grabbed my clothes and ran before he hung up. 2 weeks later, the test was positive. And I knew that if Dante Kincaid, the ruthless, cold-blooded corporate raider, found out he had an heir, he would take the baby and leave me with a check. I couldn't lose my baby. So I built a wall. "We're here," the driver announced, pulling me from the past. The car had stopped in front of the Obsidian Tower, the tallest residential building in the city. Dante's building. We were ushered into a private elevator that bypassed the lobby. The ride-up was silent, save for Leo humming the theme song to his favorite cartoon. When the doors opened, we stepped directly into a penthouse that was larger than my entire office floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the entire skyline. The furniture was modern, sleek, and impersonal. It didn't look like a home. It looked like a showroom for billionaire bachelors. "Rizzo," Dante barked into the empty air. An older beta woman in a crisp suit appeared from a hallway. She looked surprised to see guests, her eyes widening when they landed on Leo. "Sir, prepare the guest suite. The East Wing," Dante ordered. "And get food. What do children eat?" He looked at me, helpless. Chicken nuggets, Leo shouted. And apple slices. Get the finest organic chicken, Dante commanded. And apples. Now. Rizzo hurried away. I'm not staying, I said, planting my feet firmly on the marble floor. We are not staying. Leo is tired, Dante said, unbuttoning his tuxedo jacket and tossing it onto a chair. The action was casual, but the way he rolled up his sleeves, revealing thick forearms and a roadmap of veins, felt like he was preparing for a fight. Look at him. I looked down. Leo was rubbing his eyes, swaying slightly on his feet. The excitement of the night had crashed. I can take him home. He sleeps better in his own bed, I argued weakly. He sleeps where I can protect him, Dante said. Tonight, that is here. Tomorrow, we discuss the rest. There is no rest, Dante. This isn't a custody negotiation. Isn't it? Dante walked over to the wet bar and poured 2 glasses of amber liquid. He downed one in a single swallow and held the other out to me. Put the boy to bed, Julian. Then come back here. We are going to drink this scotch, and you are going to tell me exactly why I missed my son's first steps. His voice was calm, but his aura was flaring, filling the room with a pressure that made it hard to breathe. It wasn't a request. It was a summons. I didn't take the drink. I took Leo's hand. Come on, Bug. Let's get you washed up. I led Leo down the hallway Dante had indicated. The guest suite was bigger than my apartment. The bed was king-sized. I stripped Leo out of his tiny tuxedo and tucked him under the duvet, which was made of Egyptian cotton so soft it felt like water. Papa, Leo mumbled, his eyes half closed. Yeah, baby. Is the tall man sad? I paused, brushing the hair back from his forehead. Why do you think he's sad? Because he looks at you like you look at the last cookie, Leo yawned. Like he wants it, but he's not allowed to have it. My chest tightened. Kids saw too much. Go to sleep, Leo. I waited until his breathing evened out. I sat there in the dark for a long time, listening to the silence of the massive apartment. I could run. I could grab Leo right now, sneak down the fire escape. No, Dante would find us. He had the resources of a small nation. And now that he knew Leo existed, he would burn the world down to get to him. I had to face him. I stood up, smoothed my rumpled shirt, and walked back to the living room. Dante was standing by the window, staring out at the city lights. He had taken off his tie and unbuttoned the top 2 buttons of his shirt. He looked tired. He looked lonely. I walked over and took the glass of scotch that was still sitting on the bar. I took a large gulp. It burned, grounding me. He's asleep, I said. Dante didn't turn around. Does he have a favorite toy? A stuffed wolf, I said. He calls it Mr. a Wooda. Dante let out a short, dry chuckle. Appropriate. He turned around then. The humor was gone. His face was a mask of cold fury again. Sit, he said, gesturing to the leather sofa. I sat. He remained standing, looming over me. The power dynamic was intentional. He was the alpha, the predator, the judge. I was the defendant. Start talking, Dante said. And if you lie to me, Julian, I swear to God, I will destroy your company before breakfast. I didn't do it to hurt you, I began, my voice trembling slightly. I did it to protect him. Protect him from what? Me? Dante's voice rose. Did you think I would hurt him? Did you think I was a monster? I thought you were a businessman. I shouted back, standing up. I couldn't do this sitting down. I heard you, Dante. The morning after. On the phone. You said I was pliable. You said the acquisition was handled. You reduced what happened between us to a transaction. Dante looked stunned. His brows furrowed. What are you talking about? Don't pretend you don't remember. I spat, the old hurt bubbling up like acid. I was falling for you. I thought we had a connection. And then I wake up and hear you bragging about how easy I was to manipulate for a merger. Dante stared at me, his mouth slightly open. He looked confused, processing the data. Then a look of dawn breaking, horrifying, tragic dawn, washed over his face. Julian, he whispered. I wasn't talking about you. I froze. What? I was on the phone with my lawyer, Dante said, stepping closer, his eyes desperate. We were acquiring Vance Logistics. Your cousin's trucking company. Not your architecture firm. I called him pliable. Not you. The room spun. No, I shook my head. No, that doesn't make sense. You said. I said Vance is pliable. I meant Marcus Vance. Your cousin. Dante reached out and grabbed my shoulders, his grip tight. Julian, I was planning to ask you on a date that morning. I came back into the bedroom with coffee, and you were gone. You blocked my number. You vanished. I stared at him, my breath hitching in my throat. If he was telling the truth, then I had run away for nothing. I had denied Leo his father for nothing. I had spent 5 years lonely and struggling, for nothing. My legs gave out. Dante caught me. He pulled me against his chest, his arms wrapping around me like bands of steel. I could feel his heart pounding against my ear. It was racing. "You idiot," he breathed into my hair. "You stubborn, beautiful idiot." He didn't let go. He held me tighter, burying his nose in the scent gland on my neck. I should have pushed him away. I should have maintained my boundaries. But the smell of him, the comfort, the strength, it was overwhelming. My omega instincts, suppressed for so long, purred in satisfaction. "Pack. Mate. Safe." "I missed you," Dante murmured against my skin, his voice raw. "I hated you for leaving, but I missed you every single day." He pulled back slightly, cupping my face in his large hands. His thumbs traced my cheekbones. "And now I find out you were raising my son alone. That you struggled while I sat in this tower with more money than God." "I managed," I whispered, tears pricking my eyes. "We were happy." "I know," Dante said. "I saw him. He's happy. He's perfect. You did a good job, Julian." The validation broke me. A sob escaped my throat. Dante pulled me back in, holding me while I shook. "But that ends tonight," Dante said, his voice hardening again. "The struggling ends. The secrecy ends." He pulled back to look me in the eye. "You are moving in." I blinked, wiping my eyes. "What? No. I can't just." "You are moving in," Dante repeated, leaving no room for argument. "I have missed 5 years of his life. I am not missing 5 minutes more. I want to see him eat his breakfast. I want to see him brush his teeth. I want to read him bedtime stories. Dante, we can't just live together. We aren't anything. We are parents," Dante corrected. "And we are inevitable." He leaned in, his face inches from mine. His gaze dropped to my lips, then back up to my eyes. The heat between us flared up, sudden and scorching. "Besides," he whispered, his voice dark and velvety, "you owe me, Julian. You owe me 5 years. Is that a threat?" I asked, breathless. "It's a promise." Suddenly, the intercom on the wall buzzed, shattering the moment. "Sir," the security chief's voice crackled through. "We have a problem." Dante didn't let go of me. He reached out and pressed the button without looking away from my face. "What is it?" "It's your father, sir. The chairman. He saw the news. He's downstairs." Dante went rigid. His eyes turned from molten silver to cold steel. "He says he's here to see his grandson," the guard continued. "And he's brought his lawyers." Dante cursed, a vile string of words I hadn't heard since construction sites. He released me and stepped back, buttoning his shirt with shaking hands. "My father," Dante said, his voice void of all emotion, "is the reason I am ruthless. He is the reason I don't trust anyone." He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw genuine fear in the eyes of the Apex Alpha. "He tried to take the company from me. Now he's going to try to take Leo." Dante walked to the door, locking the deadbolt with a heavy thud. He turned back to me. "Go to the bedroom. Lock the door. Do not open it for anyone but me." "Dante." "Gio," he roared, his command shaking the walls. I ran. I ran down the hallway, bursting into the guest suite. I scrambled to the bed where Leo was sleeping, his thumb in his mouth. I locked the door. I pushed a heavy dresser in front of it. And then I heard the front door of the penthouse burst open. End of Chapter 2. Part 3: The Proposal. The heavy oak door of the penthouse didn't open. It exploded inward. I flinched, my body instinctively curling around Leo's small, sleeping form on the bed. The barricade I had built, a heavy mahogany dresser pushed against the door, felt pitifully inadequate against the storm that was raging in the living room. "Where is he?" The voice wasn't Dante's. It was older, drier, and infinitely colder. It sounded like parchment crinkling over dry bones. It was Lucius Kincaid, the chairman. "Get out," Dante's voice rumbled back. It was lower, vibrating through the floorboards I was pressing my ear against. It wasn't the voice of a CEO. It was the growl of a feral wolf defending its den. "You were not invited, father." "I don't need an invitation to inspect my property," Lucius scoffed. I could hear the click of hard-soled shoes on the marble floor. "And I don't need permission to retrieve my grandson. The press is already spinning stories, Dante. The secret Kincaid heir. The bastard son. It's messy. I don't like messy." "He is not a bastard," Dante snarled. There was a sickening thud, like flesh hitting flesh, followed by the crash of glass. "He is my son, and if you call him that again, I will forget that we share blood." My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. I squeezed my eyes shut. "Don't wake up, Leo. Please, baby, don't wake up." "Sentimental," Lucius said, his voice dripping with disdain. "Just like your mother." You think you can play house with this? This Omega? Julian Vance. I looked into him. A second-rate architect with a failing firm. His firm is thriving, Dante defended, and the sudden loyalty in his tone made my chest ache. And he is the mother of my child. You will speak of him with respect. I will speak of him however I please. Lucius shouted. He hid a Kincaid for 5 years. That is theft, Dante. I have lawyers standing by downstairs. We can file for emergency custody tonight. Unfit parent. Kidnapping. We'll bury him in litigation so deep he won't see the sun until the boy is 18. The air in the bedroom felt too thin. Panic, cold and sharp, clawed at my throat. They could do it. With Kincaid money, they could buy judges. They could take Leo. I couldn't let that happen. I looked at Leo. He was sleeping soundly, his long lashes fluttering against his cheeks, cheeks that were so like Dante's. I wasn't the scared 22-year-old anymore. I was a father, and a father protects his own. I stood up. My legs were shaking, but my resolve was iron. I pulled the dresser away from the door, the wood scraping loudly against the floor. Silence fell in the living room. I unlocked the door and swung it open. The scene before me was like a tableau of violence. A crystal vase lay shattered on the floor. Dante stood in the center of the room, his chest heaving, his shirt torn at the shoulder. Opposite him stood an older man in a charcoal suit, leaning on a cane that looked more like a weapon than a support. They both turned to look at me. I didn't cower. I didn't look down. I channeled every ounce of CEO energy I had spent 5 years cultivating. I released my scent, not the distressed, sour smell of fear, but the sharp, clear scent of citrus and pine. Defiance. Get out of my house, I said. Lucius Kincaid blinked. He looked me up and down, his lip curling. Your house? This is my son's penthouse. And your son asked you to leave, I said, stepping into the room. I walked until I was standing right beside Dante. I didn't touch him, but I aligned myself with him. A united front. If you don't leave in the next 30 seconds, I'm calling the police. I don't care who you are. Trespassing is trespassing. Lucius laughed. It was a dry, hacking sound. The police? I own the police commissioner, boy. Do you own the press? I countered. Lucius stopped laughing. Because I have about 10 reporters on speed dial who would love to know that the chairman of Kincaid Global is trying to forcefully separate a 5-year-old child from his father on the very night they reunited. I crossed my arms. Think about the stock price, Lucius. Family tyrant attacks grandson. It'll drop 10 points by market open. Dante looked down at me. His eyes were wide, surprised, and impressed. A flicker of heat ignited in his silver gaze. Lucius's face turned a shade of purple. He gripped his cane until his knuckles were white. He looked from me to Dante, assessing the threat. He realized, with a jolt of anger, that he had lost the tactical advantage. This isn't over, Lucius hissed. He pointed the cane at Dante. You have a board meeting on Monday. If you don't have this situation handled, by then, I will call for a vote of no confidence. I will strip you of your CEO title, Dante. I made you, and I can unmake you. He turned his cold eyes to me. And you, don't get comfortable. You're just a temporary inconvenience. With a final sneer, he turned and marched out, his lawyers trailing behind him like shadows. The door slammed shut, leaving a ringing silence in his wake. For a moment, neither of us moved. The adrenaline was still pumping through my veins, making my fingertips tingle. Then, Dante turned to me. You threatened him with the stock price, Dante said. It wasn't a question. It was a statement of disbelief. It was the only language he speaks, I replied, my voice finally trembling now that the danger was gone. Dante let out a breath, a long exhale that seemed to deflate his massive frame. He stepped closer, invading my personal space again. The smell of him, distress mixed with raw power, washed over me. Are you okay? He asked, his voice rough. He reached out, his hand hovering near my arm, afraid to touch. I'm fine, I lied. Is he gone? For good. For tonight, Dante said darkly. He doesn't give up. He's a shark. If he stops moving, he dies. Dante looked at the closed door of the guest room. Did Leo wake up? No. He sleeps like the dead. Just like. I stopped myself. Just like me, Dante finished softly. A small, sad smile touched his lips. He looked at me then, really looked at me. His gaze dropped to my neck, where my scent gland was pulsing. The tension in the room shifted. It wasn't danger anymore. It was something heavier, thicker. Attraction. Years of suppressed longing bubbling to the surface. You defended me, Dante murmured, taking a step closer. Against him. No one has ever done that. Everyone is too afraid of him. I wasn't defending you, I said breathlessly, backing up until my legs hit the sofa. I was defending my son. Our son, Dante corrected. He trapped me, placing a hand on the back of the sofa, leaning over me. And you were defending me, Julian. I could smell it on you. You were angry for me. You're imagining things, I whispered. Am I? Dante lowered his head. His nose brushed against the sensitive skin of my neck. I gasped, my knees buckling. A jolt of pleasure shot down my spine. It was biological. It was chemical. It was inevitable. You still smell the same, Dante groaned, inhaling deeply. Vanilla and rain. It's been driving me crazy for 5 years. Every time it rains, I think of you. Dante, stop, I said, but my hands were clutching his shirt, pulling him closer instead of pushing him away. We can't do this. The situation is a mess. Your father. I don't care about my father, Dante growled against my skin. He pulled back to look me in the eyes, his pupils blown wide. I care about the fact that you ran. Why did you really run, Julian? And don't give me that bullshit about the phone call. You're smart. You knew I wasn't talking about you. I looked away, the shame burning my cheeks. I was scared, okay? I was 22. You were Dante Kincaid. You were a titan. I was nobody. And then I got pregnant. I thought if I told you, you'd take the baby and pay me off. I thought I'd lose him. Dante's expression shattered. The anger vanished, replaced by a profound sorrow. He reached up and cupped my face, his thumbs wiping away a tear I didn't know had fallen. You thought I would take him from you? He whispered violently. Julian, I would have given you the world. I would have built you a kingdom just to keep you safe. He leaned his forehead against mine. I spent 5 years looking for you. I hired detectives. I tracked credit cards. But you ghosted. You changed your name. I used my mother's maiden name for a while, I admitted. I lived in a studio apartment in Brooklyn. I ate ramen so Leo could have fresh fruit. Dante closed his eyes, a look of physical pain crossing his face. While I was eating alone at Michelin star restaurants. God, Julian. He pulled me into a hug then, fierce and crushing. It wasn't sexual. It was desperate. It was an alpha reclaiming his lost pack. I melted into him, the fight draining out of me. For 5 years, I had been the strong one. I had been the pillar. For the first time, I let myself lean on someone else. You are not going anywhere, Dante mumbled into my hair. You and Leo. You stay here. I'll hire security. I'll buy the building if I have to. But you are not leaving my sight again. I pulled back slightly. Dante, I have a life. I have a company. I can't just be your house husband. I don't want a house husband, Dante said intensely. I want a partner. I want the man who just stared down Lucius Kincaid and threatened to tank his stock portfolio. He ran his thumb over my lower lip. The air crackled. But right now, Dante said, his voice dropping to a seductive whisper, I want you to go to sleep. You look exhausted. I blinked, surprised. I had expected him to push. To demand. Sleep, Dante repeated. In the guest room. With Leo. I will sleep on the couch. In your own penthouse? I don't trust myself in a bed near you right now, Dante admitted, his eyes darkening. My control is hanging by a thread, Julian. Go. I nodded, grateful and disappointed all at once. Okay. Good night, Dante. Good night, Julian. I retreated to the bedroom, rebuilding the barricade, not against Dante, but against the world outside. I crawled into bed next to Leo, pulling the duvet up to my chin. I fell asleep to the scent of sandalwood clinging to my clothes. Morning came too fast. I woke up to the feeling of a small hand patting my cheek. Papa, wake up. The TV is talking about us. I shot up in bed, my heart racing. Leo was sitting at the foot of the bed, holding the remote. The massive flat screen on the wall was on. I looked at the screen and felt the blood drain from my face. It was the morning news. The headline screamed in bold, red letters. Secret Sun Scandal. CEO Julian Vance accused of blackmailing Kincaid Dynasty. The reporter, a woman with sharp features, was speaking rapidly. Sources close to the family claim that Mr. Vance has kept the child hidden for years as a bargaining chip, waiting for the opportune moment to strike. Leaked documents suggest Vance Architecture is in severe debt, raising questions about his motives for reappearing now. Lies, I gasped. My company isn't in debt. Then the screen changed. It showed a photo of me, from college, at a party, looking disheveled, holding a drink. It was taken out of context, manipulated to make me look reckless. And then another photo, a document, a birth certificate, father, unknown. Lucius Kincaid has issued a statement, the reporter continued. He expresses deep concern for the welfare of his grandson and has petitioned the court for emergency custody, citing the unstable and manipulative environment the child has been raised in. The door to the bedroom flew open. Dante stood there. He was already dressed in a suit, but he looked like he hadn't slept. He held a tablet in his hand, his knuckles white. "Don't listen to it," Dante said, striding over to turn off the TV. "They're destroying me," I whispered, horrifying realization dawning on me. "He's destroying my reputation. If I lose my reputation, I lose my clients. If I lose my clients, I lose the company. And if I lose the company, I look unstable." "It's a play," Dante said, his voice grim. "It's the unfit mother strategy. He wants to prove you can't provide for Leo, so the judge gives him custody." Dante sat on the edge of the bed. He looked at me, his eyes burning with intensity. "There is only one way to stop this," Dante said. "One way to make the blackmail narrative impossible. One way to make sure no judge in this city will touch us." "How?" I asked, desperate. Dante took a deep breath. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a ring. It wasn't a wedding ring. It was his family signet ring. Heavy gold, ancient. He took my hand. "We have to get married," Dante said. I stared at him. "What?" "Not a fake marriage," Dante said quickly. "The press will see through that. We have to. We have to claim we've been together in secret, that we were protecting Leo from the spotlight. We have to present a united, loving front. We have to be the perfect family." "Dante, that's insanity. That's perjury. That's the only way to keep Leo." Dante cut me off. He squeezed my hand. "Marry me, Julian. Today. Let me claim you. Let me mark you as mine in front of the whole world. Once you are a Kincaid, my father can't touch you. He can't attack his own pack." I looked at Leo, who was watching us with wide eyes, sensing the gravity of the moment. I looked at the blank TV screen where my life was being dismantled. I looked at Dante, the man I had loved for 5 years in silence. "If we do this," I whispered, "there is no going back." Dante slid the heavy ring onto my finger. It was too big, but the weight of it felt like an anchor. "I don't want to go back," Dante said. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number. "Get the jet ready," Dante ordered into the phone, his eyes never leaving mine. "And get a judge on the line. We're going to Vegas." End of Chapter 3. Part 4, Wedding Night. The engines of the Gulfstream G650 roared to life, a low hum that vibrated through the plush leather seats of the private cabin. Outside the window, the tarmac of the private airfield blurred into a streak of gray as we accelerated. I gripped the armrests, my knuckles turning white. "Breathe." Dante's voice came from beside me. I turned to look at him. He was sitting in the aisle seat, looking calm, composed, and devastatingly handsome in his suit. He had loosened his tie, the top button of his shirt undone to reveal the hollow of his throat. He looked like he did this every day. Kidnap his ex-lover and secret son to fly to Las Vegas for a shotgun wedding. "I can't breathe," I whispered. "Dante, this is insanity. An hour ago I was eating toast. Now I'm fleeing the state." "We aren't fleeing," Dante corrected, reaching out to pry my hand off the armrest. He interlaced his fingers with mine, his grip warm and solid. "We are aggressively maneuvering. Papa, look. We are flying." Leo was strapped into the seat across from us, his face pressed against the glass. He was enchanted. He didn't know about the lawyers, the threats, the scandal brewing on the ground. He just saw clouds. "Yeah, Bug. We're flying," I managed to choke out. Dante squeezed my hand. "My legal team is already drafting the press release," he said, his voice low so Leo wouldn't hear. "By the time we land, the narrative will shift. We aren't the scandalous secret. We are the star-crossed lovers who hid from the world to protect our privacy." "And the marriage?" I asked, looking at the heavy gold ring on my finger. It felt foreign. It felt like a shackle, or a shield. I wasn't sure which yet. "The marriage seals it," Dante said firmly. "Spousal privilege. Joint custody. If my father tries to argue you are unfit, he has to argue that I am unfit too. And he won't do that. It would tank the company." He brought my hand to his lips, kissing the back of my knuckles. A shiver raced up my arm, settling in my chest. "Trust me, Julian. I trusted you 5 years ago," I reminded him, though the bite had gone out of my voice. "And I failed you," Dante admitted, his eyes darkening. "I will spend the rest of my life making sure I never fail you again." The flight was short, but it felt like a lifetime. I spent the time watching Leo draw in a coloring book Dante had magically produced from the jet's storage, and trying to ignore the way Dante's scent, sandalwood and expensive scotch, filled the small cabin. It was comforting, dangerously so. My Omega instincts were preening, satisfied that the Alpha was taking charge, handling the threat. "Stop it," I scolded myself. "This is a business arrangement. Don't get attached." When we landed in Las Vegas, it wasn't the neon-lit, chaotic strip I expected. A black SUV was waiting on the tarmac. We were whisked away to a private estate on the outskirts of the city, a place of white stone, palm trees, and silence. "Where are we?" I asked as we stepped out into the dry desert heat. "A friend's villa," Dante said, picking up a sleepy Leo in one arm. "I didn't want a chapel. I didn't want Elvis." He looked at me, his gaze intense. "I wanted something worthy of you." My heart skipped a beat. He's good, I thought. He's really selling the role. Inside, a judge was already waiting. She stood by a large window overlooking the desert sunset, her robes stark against the orange light. "Mr. Kincaid," she nodded. "Mr. Vance. We have the paperwork ready." Everything happened in a blur. Signatures. Dates. Dante's handwriting was sharp, aggressive. Mine was shaky. "Do you have the rings?" the judge asked. Dante nodded. He didn't produce a new ring for me. I was already wearing the Kincaid signet. But he handed me a simple platinum band for himself. "Where did you get this?" I whispered as I took it. "I bought it at the airport in New York," Dante murmured. 5 years ago. The day you left." I froze. I stared at him, my mouth slightly open. "I told you," Dante said, his voice thick with emotion. "I was going to ask you out properly. I bought this, hoping that one day, maybe years down the line, I'd need it." He had kept it. For 5 years. Tears pricked my eyes. This wasn't just a strategy for him. This was closure. Or maybe a new beginning. "Julian," Dante said, taking my hands. We were standing in front of the judge now. Leo was sitting on a velvet chair nearby, watching with wide eyes, clutching his stuffed wolf. "Do you, Dante Kincaid, take Julian Vance to be your lawfully wedded husband?" the judge asked. Dante didn't look at the judge. He looked at me. He looked at the frantic pulse in my neck, the fear in my eyes, the hope I was trying to hide. "I do," Dante said. "I take you, Julian, to have and to hold, to protect against all enemies, to provide for, to cherish." He stepped closer, breaking the protocol. "I vow to be the shield between you and the world," he whispered, low enough that only I could hear. "I vow that you will never have to run again. You are home now." A tear escaped and rolled down my cheek. I sniffled, nodding. "And do you, Julian Vance?" "I do," I interrupted, my voice cracking. "I take you, Dante." I slid the platinum band onto his finger. It fit perfectly. By the power vested in me. The judge began. Dante didn't wait. He didn't wait for, "You may kiss the groom." He cupped my face in both hands, tilting my head back, and crashed his lips onto mine. It wasn't a chaste, polite wedding kiss. It was hungry. It was possessing. His lips were hot, demanding a response. I gasped, and he took the opportunity to deepen the kiss, his tongue brushing against mine. The taste of him was overwhelming, coffee, mint, and pure alpha dominance. My knees went weak. I grabbed the lapels of his suit to stay upright. For a moment, I forgot the judge. I forgot Leo. I forgot the scandal. There was only Dante. The way his hands felt on my waist, pulling me flush against his hard body. The way his scent spiked, heavy with arousal and claim. He kissed me like he was trying to devour me. Like he was trying to make up for 5 years of starvation in 5 seconds. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathless. His eyes were blown wide, his pupils consuming the iris. My lips felt swollen, tingling. "You may kiss the groom," the judge finished awkwardly, clearing her throat. Dante smirked, his thumb tracing my lower lip. "I believe I just did." "Yay." Papa kissed the king. Leo cheered from the chair, clapping his hands. We both broke apart, laughing nervously. The tension snapped, replaced by a strange, warm giddiness. We were married. I was Julian Kincaid. The sun had set by the time we arrived at the Bellagio. Dante had rented the presidential suite, of course. The room was ridiculous. Fountains, grand pianos, a terrace that overlooked the fountains. But all I cared about was the massive bed. Leo had fallen asleep in the car. Dante carried him into the second bedroom, tucking him in with a tenderness that still made my chest ache. I stood in the doorway, watching them. The ruthless billionaire and the small boy with his mismatched eyes. Dante turned off the lamp and walked out, closing the door softly. We were alone. The silence in the suite was deafening. The adrenaline of the flight and the wedding was wearing off, leaving behind a heavy, awkward tension. We were married. We were alone in a hotel room. And there was only one other bed. "Are you hungry?" Dante asked, loosening his tie and tossing it onto the sofa. "I can order room service." "I'm not hungry," I said. I walked out onto the terrace. The cool desert night air felt good on my flushed skin. Dante followed me. He stood beside me, leaning against the railing, looking out at the neon chaos of the strip. My phone has been buzzing nonstop, Dante said. The statement went out. The photos of us leaving the courthouse are already on Twitter. And, I asked, gripping the railing. The stock price stabilized, Dante said. And the public opinion is shifting. They love a romance. Billionaire reunites with lost love. It's a better story than Secret Bastard. Duh. So it worked, I said hollowly. The transaction was successful. Dante went still. He turned to me slowly. Is that what you think that was back there? A transaction. Wasn't it? I asked, turning to face him. You needed to save your company. I needed to save my son. Quid pro quo. Dante's jaw tightened. He took a step toward me, closing the distance. Julian, he said, his voice low and dangerous. If this was just a transaction, I would have had you sign a prenup. Did you sign one? I blinked. No. I didn't think about it. Exactly. You are now the legal owner of half my assets, Dante said. Half of Kincaid Global. Billions of dollars. I gave you the power to destroy me, Julian. Do you think I would do that for a business deal? I stared at him, stunned. Why? Because I wanted you to know, Dante whispered, reaching out to touch my cheek, that I am all in. I am not keeping one foot out the door this time. I am yours. My fortune is yours. My life is yours. He leaned in, his forehead resting against mine. I lied to you earlier, he confessed softly. About what? I said I bought the ring hoping I'd need it one day. That wasn't the whole truth. He took a shaky breath. I bought the ring because I was going to propose to you 5 years ago. That morning. I wasn't just going to ask you on a date, Julian. I knew. From the moment I met you, I knew. I had the ring in my pocket when I woke up and found the bed empty. My world tilted on its axis. He was going to propose? Then. Dante. I choked out. I wasted so much time. We have time now, Dante said fiercely. We have the rest of our lives. He kissed me again, but this time it wasn't for show. It was slow, tender, a promise. I wrapped my arms around his neck, pulling him closer. The fear evaporated. The hesitation vanished. I let myself want him. I let myself need him. Take me inside, I whispered against his lips. Dante froze. He pulled back slightly to look at me, searching my eyes for any sign of doubt. Are you sure? He asked, his voice rough. We don't have to. You're tired. It's been a long day. I don't want to sleep, I said. I want to be with my husband. A growl rumbled deep in Dante's chest, a primal, possessive sound. He didn't say another word. He swept me up into his arms, carrying me bridal style back into the suite. He kicked the terrace door shut behind us. He laid me down on the massive bed, his body covering mine, heavy and warm. Mine, he murmured, kissing the sensitive spot below my ear. Finally mine. I arched into him, my fingers tangling in his hair. For the first time in 5 years, I wasn't Julian the single father. I wasn't Julian the struggling architect. I was just Julian, and I was home. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee and sunshine streaming through the curtains. I stretched, my body aching in a very pleasant way. The space beside me was empty, but the sheets were still warm. I sat up, pulling the sheet around me. Dante was sitting in an armchair across the room, fully dressed in a fresh suit. He was watching the news on the TV, the volume turned low. He looked tense. Morning, I croaked. Dante looked up. His expression was grim. He didn't smile. Dante, I asked, a cold knot forming in my stomach. What's wrong? Did the stock drop again? No, Dante said. He stood up and walked over to the bed. He sat down, handing me his phone. It's not my father, Dante said. It's worse. I looked at the screen. It wasn't a news article. It was an email. An email sent to Dante's personal account, time-stamped 3 a.m. Subject, you think you won? Body, congratulations on the wedding, Mr. Kincaid. It was a lovely ceremony. Shame about the skeleton in the closet. Julian didn't tell you everything, did he? Ask him about the clinic in Geneva. Ask him about the miscarriage he reported to the insurance company 4 years ago. If you don't wire $5 million to the account below, the medical records go to the press. And everyone will know that Leo isn't the only secret. I stared at the screen, my blood turning to ice. The room started to spin. Geneva? Dante asked quietly. His voice was void of emotion, but his eyes were pleading with me to deny it. Julian, what is this talking about? I couldn't breathe. The air was sucked out of the room. I hadn't lied about Leo, but I had lied about what happened the year after Leo was born. Dante, I whispered, tears welling up instantly. Did you have a miscarriage? Dante asked, his voice cracking. Was there Was there another baby? I looked at him, and I saw the trust one had just rebuilt shattering like glass. No, I whispered. There wasn't another baby. It was. I couldn't say it. The secret was too dark, too painful. Dante stood up, taking the phone back. He looked down at me, and for the first time since the gala, he looked like a stranger. Start talking, Julian, he said coldly. Now, end of chapter 4. Part 5, The Geneva Secret. The silence in the Bellagio suite was absolute, broken only by the distant hum of the air conditioning. Outside, Las Vegas was waking up, vibrant and alive. Inside, my world was dying. Dante stood at the foot of the bed, his silhouette sharp against the morning light. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't throwing things. He was just still. That terrifying, apex predator stillness that signaled lethal intent. The email says Geneva, Dante repeated, his voice low and devoid of warmth. It mentions a clinic. It mentions a miscarriage. And it mentions a blackmail demand for $5 million. He tossed the phone onto the duvet near my feet. It landed with a soft thud that felt like a gunshot. I need you to explain to me, Julian, why someone thinks I would pay $5 million for medical records of a baby that didn't exist. I pulled my knees to my chest, wrapping my arms around myself. I felt small, naked. The intimacy of last night, the touches, the whispers of forever, felt like a hallucination. There wasn't another baby, I whispered, my throat raw. Then what is this? Dante demanded, his control slipping. A flash of silver fire ignited in his eyes. Is it a scam? Tell me it's a scam, and I will have my security team hunt them down and skin them alive. It's not a scam, I choked out. Dante flinched. He took a step back, as if I had physically struck him. So you lied to me, he said. Again. I didn't lie about Leo. I cried, scrambling to the edge of the bed. Leo is yours. He is the only child I have ever had. Then explain Geneva. Dante roared, his shout echoing off the marble walls. Why were you in a clinic in Switzerland 4 years ago? Why did you file a claim for a miscarriage? I squeezed my eyes shut, tears leaking out hot and fast. I couldn't breathe. The memory I had buried deep, locked in a box and thrown into the ocean, was clawing its way out. Because I was dying, I whispered. The room went dead silent. Dante froze, his anger suspended in midair. What? I took a shaky breath, wiping my face with the back of my hand. I looked up at him. 4 years ago. Leo was 1. I got sick. It started as fatigue, then fainting. The doctors in New York couldn't figure it out. They ran tests. They found a defect. I swallowed hard. A genetic defect in my heart valve. It was exacerbated by the pregnancy. The stress of raising Leo alone, the sleepless nights. My heart was failing, Dante. Dante's face went pale. The blood drained from his lips. He took a step toward the bed, his hand reaching out instinctively, then dropping to his side. You were dying, he rasped. The specialists gave me 6 months, I continued, my voice trembling. They said I needed a valve replacement, an experimental surgery. The only surgeon who could do it, who would take the risk on a young Omega, was in Geneva. I looked down at my hands. I didn't have insurance that covered it. I didn't have the money. I was broke. I had sold my car. I had maxed out my credit cards just to buy formula. Why didn't you call me? Dante whispered. It was a sound of pure agony. I would have flown the surgeon to you. I would have bought the hospital. I was proud. I shouted, the tears falling freely now. And I was scared. I thought if I called you, you'd take Leo and leave me to die. Or worse, you'd think I was using the baby to get your money for myself. So what did you do? Dante asked, his voice shaking. I lied, I admitted. I had a life insurance policy, but it didn't pay out for illness. It only paid out for tragic loss. I forged documents, with a doctor who felt sorry for me. We falsified a record stating I had lost a second pregnancy due to the heart condition. It triggered a payout from a supplementary health fund, just enough for the surgery. I looked up at him, pleading. I committed insurance fraud, Dante, to save my life, so I could be there for Leo. Because if I died, he would have gone to foster care. I had no one else. Dante stared at me. He looked like he had been bludgeoned. He walked over to the bed slowly. He sat down on the edge, the mattress dipping under his weight. He didn't touch me. He just stared at the floor. You went through open-heart surgery alone, he murmured, in a foreign country. What was I doing 4 years ago? Merging with a tech giant in Tokyo. Drinking champagne. He put his head in his hands. His shoulders began to shake. Dante. I reached out, touching his knee. He grabbed my hand. He gripped it so hard it hurt, pulling it to his chest. He buried his face in my palm. I hate myself, he muffled against my skin. I hate that I wasn't there. I hate that you had to be a criminal just to survive. He looked up, his eyes red-rimmed and fierce. Who knows? Who sent the email? Only the doctor in Geneva knew, I said. Dr. Eris. But he died last year. It must be someone who accessed his files. An assistant. A hacker. Dante's expression hardened into granite. The vulnerability vanished, replaced by the cold, calculating ruthlessness of the CEO. They want 5 million? Dante stood up, pulling his phone from his pocket. I'll give them something better. He dialed a number. Rizzo, wake up the cybersecurity team. Now, I want a trace on an email sent to me at 3 a.m. I want the IP address. I want the physical location. I want to know what kind of device they used and what they had for breakfast. He paused, listening. And prepare the jet. We are going back to New York. But first, call the Swiss authorities. Tell them I have information regarding a data breach at the Eris clinic. He hung up. He looked at me. Pack your bags, Julian. We are leaving. Leaving? I asked. But the blackmailer. The blackmailer made one fatal mistake, Dante said, walking over and pulling me out of bed. He wrapped his arms around me, holding me tight against his chest. He threatened my husband. He kissed my forehead, a hard, protective press of his lips. We aren't paying a dime. We are going to hunt them down. And then, I am going to make sure the world knows that you are a hero who did whatever it took to protect our son. 2 hours later, the jet. The atmosphere on the jet was different this time. It wasn't fearful. It was war-ready. Leo was napping in the back bedroom. Dante and I sat across from each other, laptops open. I found him, Dante said, not looking up from his screen. Already. My team is efficient, Dante said. The email was sent from a burner account, but they were sloppy. They accessed the attachment, the medical records, from a cloud server. We traced the login. He turned his laptop around. It showed a photo of a man. Young, bespectacled, nervous-looking. This is Simon Vane, Dante said. He was an administrative assistant at the Geneva clinic. He was fired 6 months ago for theft. He's currently living in Queens. Queens. I blinked. He's here. In New York. He followed you, Dante said darkly. He must have seen the news about us. Saw the Cinderella story, and realized he had a winning lottery ticket in his old files. What do? I asked. We land, Dante said. We drive to Queens, and we have a little chat with Mr. Vane. Dante, we can't just show up. He might release the files if he sees us. He won't have time, Dante said. I've already had his cloud accounts frozen. As of 5 minutes ago, he is locked out of his own blackmail material. I stared at him. You can do that. Dante smirked, a dangerous glint in his eye. I own the server farm his cloud provider uses. I can do whatever I want. Queens, New York, 2 p.m. The black SUV pulled up to a rundown apartment building. It was a stark contrast to the Bellagio. Stay in the car, Dante ordered. No, I said, unbuckling my seatbelt. He threatened me. This is my fight too. Dante looked at me for a moment, then nodded. Stay behind me. We walked up the stairs. 3rd floor. Apartment 3B. Dante didn't knock. He kicked the door. The lock splintered with a loud crack. The door swung open. Inside, a skinny man in a hoodie jumped up from a couch, spilling a bowl of cereal. He looked at us, at Dante Kincaid, looking like the wrath of God in a bespoke suit, and his face went white. Mr. Vane, Dante said, stepping into the cramped living room. I believe you sent me an email. I. Simon Vane stammered, backing away until he hit the wall. I don't know who you are. Get out. You know exactly who I am, Dante said, closing the distance. And you know who my husband is. You tried to sell his pain for a payday. Dante slammed his hand against the wall next to Simon's head. Simon squeaked. Please. Simon cried. I just needed money. I have debts. The gambling. I don't care about your debts, Dante hissed. Where are the files? The physical copies. On the drive. Simon pointed to a laptop on the coffee table with a USB stick plugged in. That's the only copy. I swear. I walked over and pulled the USB stick out. I crushed it in my hand. Is that it? I asked, looking at Simon. If one word of this leaks, if I see one rumor. No. Never. Simon wept. Take it. Just don't hurt me. Dante stepped back, dusting off his suit jacket. He looked at Simon with pure disgust. You are going to leave New York, Dante said calmly. Tonight. You're going to move to, let's say, Nebraska. If I ever see your name in this city again, the The police will receive a very interesting file about your embezzlement from the Swiss clinic. Simon nodded frantically. Yes. Yes, sir. Nebraska. I love corn. Dante turned to me. He offered me his arm. Shall we, darling? I took his arm. We walked out of the apartment, leaving the sobbing blackmailer behind. As we walked down the stairs, I felt a weight lift off my chest that I hadn't realized I was carrying for 4 years. The secret was gone. The threat was neutralized. We got back into the SUV. Nebraska? I asked, raising an eyebrow. It seemed appropriate, Dante shrugged. Far away from you. He leaned over and kissed me. It was a victory kiss. Now, Dante said, checking his watch. We have one more stop. Where? My father's house, Dante said. It's time to introduce him to his son-in-law properly. And, I believe we have a family dinner to attend. I stiffened. Your father? After everything. Especially after everything, Dante said. We are going to walk in there, hand in hand with Leo. We are going to show him that we are unbreakable. And if he tries anything, well, I still have that vote of no confidence in my back pocket. He smiled, but it wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a king who had just won the war. Ready to meet the in-laws, Mr. Kincaid? I looked at the ring on my finger. I looked at the man who had flown across the country, committed cyber warfare, and kicked down a door for me. Ready, I said. End of Chapter 5. Part 6, The Final Showdown. He is not a mistake, father. The Kincaid estate didn't look like a home. It looked like a mausoleum for the living. Iron gates, twice the height of our SUV, swung open slowly, admitting us into a long, winding driveway lined with ancient weeping willows. The main house sat on the hill like a brooding stone gargoyle, dark windows staring down at us in judgment. I felt a cold shiver crawl up my spine. This was where Dante grew up. This was the cold soil that had tried to bury his warmth. You're shaking, Dante noted, his hand finding my thigh in the darkness of the car. I'm fine, I lied, covering his hand with mine. Just intimidated. He's the chairman. He eats people like me for breakfast. He used to eat me for breakfast too, Dante said, his thumb rubbing soothing circles on my skin. But I'm not a child anymore. And you aren't just people anymore, Julian. You are my husband. You are a Kincaid. Papa, is that a castle? Leo asked from the back seat, his face pressed against the glass. It's a big house, Leo, Dante answered, looking in the rearview mirror. My father lives here. Is he the grumpy king? Leo asked innocently. Dante let out a short, sharp laugh. Yes. Yes, he is. The car stopped. The heavy oak doors of the manor opened before we even stepped out. A line of staff stood waiting. It was like stepping into a period drama, but with more tension. We walked in, a united front. Dante held my hand firmly. I held Leo's. Lucius Kincaid was waiting for us in the drawing room. He was standing by the fireplace, leaning on his cane, a glass of brandy in his hand. He looked older than he had at the penthouse, or maybe just more tired. But his eyes were still sharp, calculating flints of obsidian. So, Lucius said, his voice echoing in the high-ceilinged room. The prodigal son returns. With his entourage. Family, Dante corrected instantly. With my family. Lucius's gaze slid to me, cold and dismissing, then dropped to Leo. For a second, the mask slipped. He stared at the boy, at the messy curls, the mismatched eyes, the defiant chin. It was like looking in a mirror that distorted time. Come here, boy, Lucius commanded. I tightened my grip on Leo's hand. Go on, Leo, Dante said softly. It's okay. Leo looked up at me for permission. I nodded, though every instinct screamed no. Leo walked forward, stopping a few feet from the old man. Hello, Leo said. I like your stick. Can you do magic with it? Lucius blinked. It is a cane, not a wand. Oh, Leo looked disappointed. Papa said you were a king. Kings have scepters. Lucius looked up at Dante. You told him I was a king? I told him you were a lot of things, Dante said dryly. He chose to focus on the royalty part. Lucius looked back down at Leo. A strange expression crossed his face. Not quite a smile, but a softening of the hard lines around his mouth. You look like Dante. Before he learned to scowl. Dinner is served, a butler announced, breaking the moment. The dinner was an exercise in psychological warfare. The dining room table was long enough to seat 30 people. We were clustered at one end. The silence was punctuated only by the clinking of silver against fine china. So, Lucius began, cutting into his steak with surgical precision. I saw the news. A Vegas wedding. How pedestrian. It was efficient, Dante said, taking a sip of wine. And it secured the stock price. It's up 4% today. Short-term gains, Lucius scoffed. But what about the long term? You've married a man with a checkered past. A man who hid my grandson. I hid him to protect him from you. I spoke up. My voice was steady, surprising even me. Lucius turned his head slowly to look at me. Excuse me. I said I hid him from you. I repeated, putting down my fork. I saw what you did to Dante. You made him think love was a weakness. You made him think he had to be a machine to be worthy of the name Kincaid. I didn't want my son to grow up thinking his value was tied to a quarterly earnings report. Dante stopped eating. He was watching me with intense pride. You are insolent, Lucius sneered. You are a small-time architect who trapped a billionaire. I didn't trap him, I said. And I'm not small-time. I survived open-heart surgery alone in a foreign country to come back to my son. I built a company from scratch while raising a toddler. I am stronger than you will ever be, Lucius. Because I fight for people, not profits. Silence. Absolute, ringing silence. Lucius stared at me. He looked for fear. He looked for hesitation. He found neither. Open-heart surgery? Lucius asked quietly, glancing at Dante. He saved himself, Dante said, his voice thick with emotion. When I wasn't there. He is the strongest person in this room, Father. Lucius looked back at me. He took a long sip of his brandy. Perhaps, Lucius muttered. The boy needs strong blood. The Kincaid line has been thinning. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't a hug. But coming from Lucius Kincaid, it was a surrender. Leo, Lucius said abruptly. Do you like horses? Leo's eyes lit up. Yes. Horses go neigh. Tomorrow, Lucius said, looking at his plate. I will take you to the stables. We have a pony. He is fat. And slow. Suitable for a beginner. I looked at Dante. Dante looked at me. He squeezed my hand under the table. We had won. 3 months later. The penthouse had changed. It was no longer a cold, sterile showroom. There were toys scattered on the Persian rug. There were finger paintings taped to the floor-to-ceiling windows, obscuring the million-dollar view of the skyline. The air didn't smell like lonely scotch anymore. It smelled like baking cookies and life. I was in the kitchen, trying to frost a cake for Leo's 6th birthday party. It was a disaster. The icing was melting. You're doing it wrong, a deep voice murmured in my ear. Strong arms wrapped around my waist from behind. Dante pulled me flush against his chest, burying his face in the crook of my neck. I'm an architect, not a baker, I complained, leaning back into him. Structural integrity is failing. It looks delicious, Dante said, kissing the sensitive spot below my ear. Or maybe that's just you. He spun me around, lifting me effortlessly onto the kitchen island. The icing spatula fell from my hand. Dante, the party starts in an hour. The guests will be here. Your father is coming. Let him wait, Dante growled, stepping between my legs. He's been monopolizing my son's time for weeks. Pony lessons. Chess lessons. I barely see my own kid. He's making up for lost time, I said, running my hands through Dante's hair. It was longer now, softer. He looked younger, happier. He actually smiled yesterday. It was terrifying. He respects you, Dante said, his hands resting on my thighs, thumbs rubbing the fabric of my jeans. He told me. He said, that husband of yours has a spine of steel. Don't mess it up. High praise, I laughed. I don't need his praise, Dante whispered, leaning in until our lips were brushing. I have everything I need right here. He kissed me. It was slow, sweet, and filled with a promise of forever. It was the kiss of a man who had finally come home. Papa, Dad, we broke apart breathlessly. Leo ran into the kitchen, wearing a cape and a plastic crown. Grandpa is here. He brought a horse. He brought a what? Dante asked, turning pale. A real horse. In the elevator. Dante groaned, dropping his forehead onto my shoulder. I'm going to kill him. He brought a pony into the obsidian tower. I laughed, hopping off the counter. Well, go handle your dad. I have a cake to save. Dante looked at me. He grabbed my hand and kissed the palm. I love you, Julian. I smiled, my heart full to bursting. I love you too, Dante. He turned and marched out to deal with the chaos, Leo trailing behind him, shouting about the royal steed. I watched them go. My family. My pack. I picked up the spatula. The cake was messy. The life was chaotic. The future was unwritten. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid. I was exactly where I was supposed to be. End of story.